Catherine, Princess of Wales. And the woman watching it all happen with barely concealed dread is Queen Camilla. What we are witnessing today is not just a palace rivalry. It is the completion of a mission that began with Diana, Princess of Wales, a mission that was interrupted by tragedy, suppressed by an institution terrified of the people's love, and is now being carried forward by the woman who wears Diana's engagement ring, carries Diana's earrings into the grandest ceremonies in the world, and holds 75% of Britain's heart in the palm of her hand. Marriage crumbled. The divorce was bitter. And in August 1997, Diana died in a Paris tunnel and the world stopped breathing for a moment. But her mission, to humanize the monarchy, to use the platform of royalty to genuinely serve people, to be a princess who belonged to the world and not just to the palace, that mission died with her, or so the palace hoped. What they did not count on was a young woman from Berkshire named Catherine Middleton, who would spend 2 decades quietly, methodically, and brilliantly picking up every thread Diana left behind. When Catherine first appeared on the royal scene in the early 2000s as a university girlfriend of Prince William, the palace did not welcome her. They tolerated her. Camilla Parker Bowles, who had just married Charles and was fighting her own battle for public acceptance, reportedly did not think Catherine was good enough for the role. Royal biographer Christopher Anderson, in his explosive 2026 book titled Kate, the Courage, Grace, and Power of the Woman Who Will Be Queen, has now confirmed what many suspected for years. That Camilla initially believed Kate Middleton was too common to be the wife of a future king. The Middletons were self-made. Her mother, Carol, had built a successful high supply business from nothing. They had no aristocratic titles, no centuries-old family seat, no coat of arms stretching back to the Norman conquest. In the eyes of the old royal establishment, Catherine Middleton was an outsider, and Camilla made sure she felt it. The cruelty began even before the wedding. The British press, fed by palace insiders who clearly wanted her gone, attacked Catherine relentlessly through her years of dating William. They called her Waity Katie. They mocked her family. They photographed her mother chewing gum and turned it into a national scandal. They questioned her ambitions, her education, her purpose. They wrote column after column suggesting she had no identity of her own, that she was simply waiting to be useful. And through all of it, Catherine said nothing. She smiled, she waited, she watched, and she learned. Because what those years of being underestimated gave Catherine was something far more valuable than a warm welcome. They gave her the ability to read people, to understand the institution she was marrying into, and to know exactly who her real allies were and who was playing a game against her from the very beginning. Then came the name incident, a moment that is small in appearance but enormous in what it reveals about the power dynamics at the heart of the royal family. When Catherine and William married in April 2011, Charles and Camilla apparently had a concern about their royal monogram. 2 interlocking C's beneath a coronet. Having a Catherine in the family created a problem with the branding, so to speak, and so the suggestion was made. Perhaps she could go by Catherine instead. Perhaps she could tweak her name to fit the palace's needs. Catherine was reportedly offended. And Prince William, according to Christopher Anderson, William was left absolutely fuming. He called the request insulting, not only to his wife, but to her entire family. This is not a small detail. This tells you everything about the kind of palace Catherine was entering. An institution that had already asked its newest member to literally rename herself to avoid a monogram clash. An institution where the incoming queen consort felt entitled to make such a request at all. And a prince who, to his enormous credit, stood by his wife with the force of someone who understood exactly what was being asked and refused to allow it. Camilla's relationship with Catherine has never been simple, and the public face of warmth and cooperation has always masked something more complicated beneath. The tension, according to multiple palace insiders, is rooted not just in personal history, but in something far more primal, the terror of irrelevance. Camilla spent decades fighting to be accepted. She was the most hated woman in Britain for years after the collapse of Charles and Diana's marriage. She endured public fury, protest marches, and tabloid cruelty of a kind that would have broken most people. But she survived it. She rebuilt herself. She cultivated an image of literary sophistication, championed reading and books and the arts, and slowly, painstakingly, won a grudging acceptance from the British public. And then she watched as Catherine, younger, more beautiful, more instinctively warm, with 3 photogenic children and a cancer survival story and Diana's ring on her finger, simply eclipsed everything Camilla had built without even trying. You cannot manufacture that kind of chemistry with the public. Catherine did not pursue popularity. It pursued her. The numbers do not lie. The April 2026 YouGov polling data is staggering in what it reveals about where power truly sits within the Windsor family. Among all living members of the royal family, Catherine, Princess of Wales, commands a 75% positive approval rating from the British public. Her husband, Prince William, is at 76%. King Charles stands at 60%. And while the polling organizations do not always publish Camilla's numbers separately from Charles, the pattern is clear. The couple at the top of the public's affection is not the king and queen who sit on the throne today. It is the couple who will sit on that throne tomorrow. Britain has already chosen its emotional monarchy, and it chose Catherine. Even more striking is where Diana fits into all of this. More than 28 years after her death, Princess Diana retains a 77% positive approval rating in Britain. She is more popular than the sitting king. She is more beloved than any institution the palace has built in her absence. And that fact is not lost on anyone. Watching Catherine move through the world in 2026, wearing Diana's jewels, honoring Diana's causes, raising Diana's grandchildren. The connection between Diana and Catherine is not just sentimental. It is strategic, deliberate, and profoundly powerful. When Catherine arrived at the Commonwealth Day service at Westminster Abbey on March 9th, 2026, she wore the Bahrain pearl drop earrings that had belonged to Queen Elizabeth II, a choice that connected her to the most beloved queen of the modern era. When she appeared at Trooping the Colour in June 2026, she paid tribute to Diana in a gesture that set the internet ablaze and trended globally within hours. These are not accidents. These are the actions of a woman who understands exactly what she represents and exactly what the public needs to see from her. Because what Catherine has done over the past 2 years, during and after her cancer diagnosis and treatment, during the period when she was largely absent from public life, is something extraordinary. She transformed vulnerability into sovereignty. When she announced her cancer diagnosis in March 2024 in that quiet, dignified video filmed in a garden, she did not seek pity. She asked for privacy while she fought. And when she returned, slowly and deliberately, she returned as someone different. The uncertainty was gone. The slight deference, the sense that she was still finding her footing, that had evaporated. In its place was a woman who had stared at her own mortality and decided that the time for being cautious was over. The time for being extraordinary had begun. Her work in 2026 reflects that transformation at every level. In January, she and William traveled to Scotland on a 2-day tour celebrating Scottish heritage, visiting the Radical Weavers, a community pub, and the iconic Kelpies. Catherine wore a blue wool coat perfectly suited to the landscape and the people, and she looked not like a visiting dignitary, but like someone genuinely delighted to be there. In March, she took up her role as Colonel of the Irish Guards, greeting officers and their families at Mons Barracks in Aldershot for St. Patrick's Day, presenting shamrock to an Irish wolfhound, named Seamus, laughing and smiling with a kind of ease that cannot be faked. In April, she attended the Anzac Day service of commemoration at Westminster Abbey. In May, she undertook a 2-day international visit to Reggio Emilia in Italy to advance her early childhood development work, the first serious international solo engagement of her post-illness return. In June, she was at the Order of the Garter at Windsor Castle, then Royal Ascot, radiant in a Patrick McDowell coat named, with perfect symmetry, the Wales. She is back, and she is not the same woman who left. The early childhood work deserves particular attention because it is where the true parallel to Diana becomes most visible. Diana revolutionized how the royal family engaged with causes that the establishment considered too raw, too difficult, too political. She did not just attend charity dinners. She got on the floor with AIDS patients. She sat in landmine fields. She made the palace uncomfortable and the public feel seen. Catherine is doing something structurally similar with her decade-long campaign around early childhood development. She has made the case, backed by academic research and years of engagement, that the first 5 years of a child's life determine almost everything that comes after: their mental health, their relationships, their economic outcomes, their likelihood of falling into addiction or crime or homelessness. This is not a glamorous cause. It does not photograph easily. It does not generate the kind of immediate emotional images that fill tabloid front pages. But Catherine has pursued it with absolute consistency for over a decade. And in doing so, she has built something that Diana, for all her genius, never had enough time to build. A body of substantive, evidence-based, lasting work that will outlive any single news cycle. At the Future Workforce Summit in late 2025, Catherine made her first major public speech in 2 years and stepped to the podium not as a woman returning from illness, but as a woman with a mission. She told 80 assembled business leaders that the challenge of balancing profitability with positive impact is real but not insurmountable, and that supporting caregivers and healthy family life is not charity but strategy. It was precise, it was authoritative, and it was the voice of a future queen who has done the reading, built the coalition, and is ready to lead. That moment marked the unofficial end of her recovery and the beginning of her ascent. The palace sensed it, the public felt it, and Camilla, watching from Buckingham Palace, understood it perfectly. Because here is the uncomfortable truth that sits at the heart of everything Camilla has built and everything she fears losing. When Charles eventually is no longer king, whether by death or abdication, Camilla's entire position evaporates. The title, the palace, the staff, the formal role, the precedence, the first dibs on the color blue at state events, all of it disappears because it is tied entirely to her marriage to the sitting monarch. Catherine does not need a husband's title to matter. Catherine is the title. She is the Princess of Wales, not because she married a prince, but because she has earned the love and respect of the Welsh people, the British people, and an enormous global audience that has watched her grow from a shy university girlfriend into something close to a global icon. When William becomes king, Catherine will become queen. And the question of where Camilla fits in that picture is one that nobody in the palace has a comfortable answer to. The Queen Mother precedent is often cited. When George VI died in 1952 and Elizabeth became queen, the Queen Mother stepped back gracefully into the role of beloved elder royal, respected, celebrated, but clearly not the primary figure. She inhabited that role brilliantly for the remaining 50 years of her life. Could Camilla do the same? In theory, yes. In practice, the relationship between the two women makes it far more complicated. The tension that palace insiders describe, the sense that Camilla has chosen to be petty and territorial rather than fall into line, suggests that the transition, when it comes, will not be smooth. And the public, who have already chosen Catherine with overwhelming clarity in the polling numbers, will not be patient with the former queen, who makes that transition difficult. What is remarkable is how little Catherine has done to engineer any of this. That is perhaps the most powerful thing about her. She has not briefed against Camilla. She has not given interviews attacking the palace. She has not done what Meghan and Harry did. She has not gone to Oprah and aired the institution's dirty laundry in prime time. She has remained inside the system, worked within it, and simply outgrown it by being the best version of herself. Royal commentators have noted for years that Catherine's genius is her consistency. She shows up, she does the work, she remembers names, she follows up, she reads the briefing notes, she goes to the places where it is uncomfortable to go, and she stays longer than protocol requires because she is actually interested in the people she meets. And over 15 years, that consistency has compounded into something that no amount of palace politics can undo. The book, Kate, by Christopher Anderson, published in May 2026, has crystallized the public narrative around all of this more powerfully than anything in recent years. By laying out in documented research detail the catalog of slights Catherine endured, from the name change request to the 2 common judgments from Camilla and the palace establishment, Anderson has done something important. He has contextualized Catherine's rise not as luck or circumstance, but as triumph against active opposition. The public reading those details does not see a woman who was handed a fairy tale. They see a woman who was told she was not good enough, was kept waiting for a decade in an informal status that gave her all the scrutiny of royal life with none of the protection, survived cancer, and emerged as the single most beloved figure in the British royal family. That is not a fairy tale. That is something far more powerful. It is a story of resilience that resonates with millions of ordinary people who have also been told they are not enough, who have also been made to wait, who have also had to fight to be taken seriously by institutions that did not want them. And Diana knew this. Diana understood before anyone else in the royal family understood it, that the power of the monarchy in the modern world is not military power or political power or economic power. It is emotional power. It is the power to make people feel seen, feel valued, feel connected to something larger than themselves. Diana wielded the power with a raw, instinctive brilliance. Catherine wields it with something different, with patience and precision, and an intelligence that has been forged in a crucible of scrutiny that very few people in the world have survived with their dignity intact. She is not Diana. She was never going to be Diana. But she is completing what Diana started. She is proving that it is possible to be a princess who belongs to the people and not just to the palace, that it is possible to hold immense institutional power and still be a human being, that it is possible to be royal and real at the same time. The contrast with Camilla is not just personal, it is philosophical. Camilla represents the old monarchy, the monarchy of precedence and protocol and privilege, of first dibs on colors and name changes and monograms and the careful, exhausting management of public perception by people who see the public as something to be managed rather than served. Catherine represents the new monarchy, the monarchy that Diana dreamed of and planted the seeds for, a monarchy that earns its place in modern life not by demanding deference, but by genuinely deserving it. The British public can feel the difference. The 75% approval rating is not a number, it is a verdict. The summer of 2026 has made the power shift impossible to ignore. At Royal Ascot, on June 17th, Catherine arrived in a show-stopping ensemble that drew gasps and cameras and headlines across the globe. At the order of the Garter on June 15th, she stood at Windsor Castle in her Patrick McDowell, the Wales coat, and looked, as one commentator wrote, like someone who has already accepted in their heart that they are ready for everything that is coming. The woman who once walked a few steps behind, who deferred and waited and endured, is now the gravitational center of every room she enters. Not because she demands it, because people cannot help it. Meanwhile, the institution adjusts around her. The palace that once asked her to change her name now shapes its communication strategy around her priorities. The early childhood mission, that was once considered too niche for a senior royal, is now the subject of a landmark international visit and a summit of 80 global business leaders. The BBC, which for years referred to her as Kate over her own stated preference for Catherine, issued a formal public apology in November 2025 after complaints flooded in. Even in language, the institution is bending to her. And Camilla, who once held first place in the royal pecking order for everything from outfits to official statements, is watching the world reorganize itself around a woman she once called too common to be a future queen. History has a way of delivering its verdicts slowly and then all at once. For years, the story of Catherine, Princess of Wales, seemed like one of patient endurance. A woman waiting for her moment, keeping her head down, doing the work, trusting that her time would come. In 2026, the time has come. The cancer that threatened to take her away has instead stripped away everything extraneous and left only what was always there. The purpose, the intelligence, the warmth, the absolute unshakable commitment to using the platform she has been given to genuinely improve the lives of the people who need it most. Diana spent 16 years inside the royal family trying to do what Catherine has spent 25 years learning to do. And it cost Diana everything. Catherine has learned from that cost. She has learned to be revolutionary without being threatening, to be modern without abandoning tradition, to be the people's princess without ever saying a single word that the institution can use against her. Camilla's empire, the carefully constructed apparatus of patronages and precedences and palace protocol that she has spent 2 decades building as a monument to her own rehabilitation, is not crumbling in a single dramatic scene. It is diminishing, quietly, but unmistakably, in the face of something it was never equipped to compete with. Not politics, not strategy, not even beauty or youth. It is diminishing in the face of genuine love. The British public does not love Camilla the way they love Catherine. They do not feel seen by Camilla the way they feel seen by Catherine. They do not look at Camilla and think of Diana. They look at Catherine and feel the echo of everything Diana promised. And this time, they dare to hope that the promise will not be broken. The monarchy that William and Catherine will lead is already being built in public, one engagement at a time, one speech at a time, one Irish wolfhound with shamrock at a time, one earring from a beloved dead queen at a time. It is a monarchy that looks outward. Italian educators approach the first years of life. That visits the radical weavers of Scotland and genuinely cares what it finds. That stands in front of business leaders and challenges them to be better. That raises 3 children in as much normality as the extraordinary circumstances allow. That survived cancer without asking for sympathy and returned without demanding applause. It is worth pausing here to consider what Camilla's position actually looks like from the inside in 2026, because it is easy to reduce her to a villain in this story, and the truth is more complicated than that. Camilla Parker Bowles has had one of the most extraordinary rehabilitations in the history of modern celebrity. She was reviled. She was blamed for destroying a fairy tale. She was booed and heckled and had bread rolls thrown at her car. She endured all of it with a gritted teeth resilience that, in other circumstances, you might genuinely admire. And when Charles finally became king in September 2022, she became queen. An outcome that once seemed so improbable that polling organizations regularly asked the British public whether they thought it should ever be allowed to happen. And the answer for many years was a firm no. She got there. She worked for it, schemed for it, waited for it, and earned it in the most bitterly contested way imaginable. And then she achieved it and discovered that achieving it was not the end of the story. It was barely the beginning of the problem. Because becoming queen consort of a king who is 78 years old and managing cancer is not the same thing as becoming an institution. And what Catherine is in 2026, what she has made herself through 25 years of showing up, is an institution. Camilla is a title, Catherine is a legacy, and Camilla knows the difference. The literary patronages, the Booker Prize events, the Wow Festival speech, all of Camilla's carefully constructed public identity rests on a foundation of cultural credibility and institutional seniority. And that foundation holds perfectly well when Catherine is absent or unwell or managing 3 children through a cancer recovery. But the moment Catherine is healthy, visible, and fully engaged, which she now is, the contrast between the 2 women becomes impossible to overlook. The public does not compare them unfavorably to Camilla's face. British politeness prevents that. But in the polling booths, in the comment sections, in The way photographers abandon other royals, the moment Catherine enters a room, the verdict is delivered with absolute clarity. This is what Camilla's insiders describe as the panic. Not fear of Catherine as an adversary, fear of irrelevance in the face of someone who generates a level of public love that Camilla simply cannot match and never will. Diana started something in 1981 that the palace spent years trying to finish. She wanted a monarchy that deserved the love it received. She wanted a royal family that earned its place in modern Britain, not by birthright alone, but by service, by courage, by the willingness to be human in a role that pushes people relentlessly toward becoming symbols. She did not live long enough to finish what she started, but she left someone to finish it for her. And that someone has spent 25 years preparing for this exact moment, learning the institution from the inside, surviving its cruelty, outlasting its resistance, and emerging from the most personal crisis imaginable with a clarity of purpose that is simply extraordinary to witness. There are people who believe that Catherine is too polished, too careful, too controlled to ever truly connect with the public the way Diana did. And it is true that Catherine operates differently. She does not give tabloid newspapers her tears. She does not speak to the cameras about heartbreak. She does not, as Diana memorably did, sit in a Martin Bashir interview and level the palace to its foundations. But the connection she has built is arguably more durable because of that. Diana's love with the public was a lightning bolt, instant, electric, overwhelming. Catherine's love with the public is a long, slow fire, built over decades of consistency, of showing up, of doing the boring and the extraordinary with equal commitment. And a fire burns longer than a lightning bolt. It warms more people. It endures more storms. And in 2026, as the summer light falls across Windsor Castle and Catherine walks forward into everything that is coming, that fire is burning brighter than it has ever burned before. And no amount of palace protocol, royal precedence, or territorial maneuvering from a woman who once called her too common to be queen is going to put it out. Not now, not ever. And in the summer of 2026, as Catherine walks through Windsor Castle in a coat named the Wales, as the approval ratings climb and the palace reshapes itself around her priorities, and as Camilla watches from a distance she once could not have imagined, it is finally, undeniably, unmistakably clear. Diana's mission is being completed, and the woman completing it was once told she was too common to even try.